Good morning, I'm Susan Cousino. This is the office hour for Oregon State University PDC Pro Fall 2023. This is Zoom number 9, and the next lesson due is lesson 9, Building Survey and Zone 1 Design on February 26, 2024. Okay, so we don't have anyone here yet, which is fine. Kind of typical when we get to the end of the course, but we might have a few dropping in. Okay, so I'm going to do share screen, pardon me. I'm going to get into the template here, share. There we go. All right, so you should be able to see the screen now. So we're starting on the building survey. Now, this is a pretty straightforward assignment. There's not a ton of resources to go through. This is where you really get into more of the mapping design aspects. So you've already done your plant system design. So you've gotten a little taste of that design process here. So if you've gone into your assignment resources, like I said, pretty straightforward. Just want to make sure you're seeing that still. Yes, okay. So your assignment resources is just a short little video. It's 5.5 minutes. It just explains the concept of permaculture zones, how you map them out. This isn't actually the correct preview. This is for a different movie. But yeah, so Andrew walks you through a really nice, like a fairly simplified example and talks about, deviations from that simplification. So you do all have a unique site, obviously, and it's not going to be necessarily like very clean cut concentric zones. But the zone principle basically gives you an idea of how to plan out your site based on the amount of use and the frequency of use. That how often you need to access an area, for instance, for pruning trees or for collecting eggs, harvesting herbs or flowers or crops. If you're managing soil, if you're managing materials, you're going to design in part of that zone based on frequency of how often and how easy you need to be able to access that area. So that's basically the zone concept in a nutshell. So for this assignment, I'm just skipping over the building survey for the moment. For the zone design assignment, that's all you're doing is you're basically laying out what is this zone 1 for my site going to look like, and that's going to be your zone of most frequent use and interaction. Okay, so let's just pause that there. I'm going to skip back a bit and going to fly through the building survey because it is very straightforward. It's just your information gathering piece. Some information about what local or regional traditions are for building, what kind of materials they used. Most often students find that the traditional lifeways and traditional building methods and materials are generally not, they're not really applicable. I don't want to say they're appropriate because the climate has changed certainly, but not that much that they're no longer completely appropriate, but they're not really applicable in a modern context. And often actually, for instance, municipal or regional building codes actually supersede the ability to use those materials. However, you can think about doing something like building a small temporary structure just to get some practice with working with different materials. If you have children, you could build like a small tree house or an outdoor fort based on some like these nomadic traditions of using, for instance, willow, mule fat, or different types of bendable, very productive trees, and then like a thatch covering or some sort of more temporary covering. Now, these are often also likely to be more flammable, so that's one reason I would say that they're not so appropriate. And that's usually what students run into is like, oh, this looks like a lot of fun, but it's it's actually really more applicable to a nomadic culture. So people that are building those structures to live in for the summer, for a few months, and then they move on. So they take those structures down, or they just destroy them completely and then move on to the next area. So not really how most of us are living anymore. The vast majority of us are not living that way anymore. One of especially in like the Southwest US, one of the exceptions to that is, of course, natural building methods that use like adobe or monolithic, what we call monolithic adobe or cobb. So basically that's founded on using the materials that are on your land. So your clay, your sand, that'll be like straw. People incorporate cow or horse manure, which sounds awful, but it actually the protein and the, I'm not sure if it's the bacteria, but I think a large part of it is the protein, and some of the sugars in the manure is actually what helps to bind the cob and make it much stronger and more more resilient to, say, like weathering and even like to a little bit of flexing. So there's a lot of movement in the California building code right now to incorporate monolithic adobe or cobb building, in order to allow for natural building techniques to be used increasingly in modern structures, because it's such a better alternative to concrete, to modern, stick frame construction that's highly flammable. So these are buildings that are essentially inflammable or much more resistant to fire damage. They're resistant to termite damage. They're beautiful, they're warm and comforting, and they've got much better thermal control, thermal mass. So that may be one exception that we would find, but typically I find a lot of students that come across these like, indigenous, more nomadic types of structures have a hard time connecting that to like how we live today, and that's fine. That's kind of to be expected, but it's nice to know what kind of materials people did use that originally inhabited these lands. Now, of course, if you're in another part of the world, that might be completely different. For instance, Europe, of course, has a much more patchworked or almost a more distant indigenous history that may be more difficult, but you may find like more kind of like early, like late AD or early, 1000 building methods, more stone construction. Thatch roofing is actually still quite present in a lot of areas in Europe. So you might explore more of that rather than like an indigenous perspective, unless if you can find information on like what indigenous tribes used on that land, that's awesome, include that. But don't exhaust yourself. We are winding down to the end of the course. We're in the last month now. So don't, just get some information, get a good idea of what was going on, or what types of traditions were commonplace in this land, and then kind of keep moving on. Of course, you can, you'll evaluate the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities of those. So if there's an opportunity to like, hey, I could actually use this material, that's a good place to drop this. If there's any threats, like, hey, this is actually really flammable, this would just not work for some other reason, that's fine. That's where the place to put it. And then if you find anything interesting, putting it into your conclusions and final thoughts is a good place for that. And once again, any questions? Okay, so your zone 1 design. So this is really where you start to get into the design process after having done your plant systems design. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. You're just going to drop your base map from earlier in the course. So it's lesson 2. So yeah, so bring your base map up. Now this is where, of course, you've already seen having a nice clear base map with an accurate scale is really important. So just bring that up and then highlight your zone 1. You're going to just follow the instructions here, your focal images. This is where it's really nice to have like good clear images that haven't been skewed by importing them. This is why I harp on like early in the course, like get your methods for bringing images down, like so you feel really confident and that the images aren't getting skewed or out of aspect ratio. So okay, and then this is going to be your base map info with your photo reference. So pretty straightforward. There's some nice examples here to look to. This is a really nice clear one showing just different angles on the site. And so you can use different size photos, that's fine. It can be kind of irregular. And do feel free to crop out any information in the image that's not really relevant. So these are nice crops that show like tree height, the expanse of grass, the house in the background. So those are nice. They're pretty tight. They show the relevant information, really, no more, not too much more. So this is another way of looking at it. Here's the base map, and then just different things that are highlighted that we're going to try and resolve in the zone 1 design. Okay, and keep in mind that these are what existing conditions are like. So note this at the top. If you need to keep reminding yourself existing conditions, and you're just highlighting what the existing zone 1 is. Okay. Similarly, zones, microclimate, cross sections. Again, you're going to do a cross section, which you've done before. So just highlight an interesting axis that shows, gives you some information that you're going to speak to. So again, here's some nice examples. Here's your zone 0 is the main house. Zone 1 is your daily use. I'm gonna say this is their zone 1. Oh, this is, see, this is something to be careful with of when these colors overlap. I don't see what color this would be, but just make sure that your colors in your legend are very clear as to what they mean on the map. I would see this and I'm like, I'm not entirely certain what color this is and what this is supposed to designate. So I don't like being unclear. If I have to sit here and figure it out, then, you know, you can tweak something, you can improve there. This is a nice example of here's your design, here's your cross section. This is what that view looks like. So this is a really nice laid out slide, other than that kind of ambiguity and what those colors are going to mean. Here's another example. Now this is one of those examples where it's somebody's done this with a fairly high level graphics program. So, you know, don't get wound up if you're not executing that level of graphics design. That's quite a high level, you know, that's like professional level design. So don't worry about it if you're not there yet. Same for the base map. I mean, this person obviously has access, or has not only access to, but familiarity with using a high level graphics program. So this is where you can get to eventually, but don't worry about it if you're not there yet. Using the base map that we've been following through the course is perfectly fine. Okay, and now this is your existing conditions plus the design patterns that you're going to propose. So you're looking at things like, so you're outlining your goal. So say you've got a goal of creating an inviting outdoor living space. So this is what your template's going to look like, right? So there's different examples of what those patterns are going to look like. So you're going to specify your goal right here. Now, see these, yeah, so this is a little bit different. It is nice to look to these examples to see how different people have laid this out. So this example is based off the main template. So your main goal is here, and then here's your patterns and a secondary goal. This person, and this is actually an example I see come up quite often in the ways that students structure their projects, pardon me. So your statement of purpose is really the big overarching goal, like what you want this whole thing to come together as. And then you've got some specific goals, kind of a sub goal underneath that, and then patterns, and then your strategies. So your patterns are going to be basically an overview of how you're planning to reach that goal. So what kind of patterns are you going to create? Well, we're going to bring people outside with some outdoor seating, some lounging and dining areas. In order to make that comfortable, we're going to want some wind and smoke breaks. So to break, that's not a smoke break, but you know, to break those patterns of wind and smoke, we want to have some edible features. So that might be, say, like a berry shrub, even like a tea bush or something. And then some sort of privacy screen. We want it to be evergreen so that it's year round. Okay, so those are the patterns we're looking to create. And then how are we going to do that? We're going to choose an edible edge along this part of the home. We're going to use the rhododendron as a bathroom window privacy screen. So just getting into some specifics here of what that privacy means. And then how we're going to incorporate the outdoor living space, the seating and dining area with a screened-in porch and some other specifics there. So that's a really nice way of laying that out. You take your own perspective on this and what's going to work best for you, like for the way that you like to look at this and what your project needs. As usual, I think. Okay, proposed water management. Shouldn't be anything too new here. So this is going to be the water flow that you've got on your property, which is going to take you back to your site water flow analysis, which you've already done. And then looking at both the overflow and then passive and active water harvesting. So whether you're going to have, like say, if you're going to have swales or some sort of like a mulch pit or some basins to capture water, and then more active water harvesting, like your rainwater, so tanks, gutters, installations, stuff like that, where those are going to overflow to, where your spigots and hoses go, if there's any irrigation, all of that can go into this map. Okay. And again, some really nice examples here. This is a suburban site. If you are working on a larger site, keep in mind that this is still your zone 1. So if this is on a 45-acre property, so the house is actually like if this page was the map, your house might be this big. You're just designing this little piece right around the house. So keep that in mind. You can always reference to like irrigation that, this is the spigot to irrigation or the control center for irrigation that goes out to the fields that are actually like zones 2 through 4. Or this is the irrigation that goes out to the orchard, which is in zone 2. But remember that you're just designing for zone 1 in this part of the course. So just keep it focused on that home, like the main living area. Here's another example again with that a higher level design program, but just a different type of layout that they've taken there. Okay. Okay, your proposed plan, this is going to be where you get into, this is what this is what I'm dreaming of, this is what I actually want to do. So here you're going to use your grayscale base map, show what is existing on property, and then use the colored icons for proposed elements. So essentially you're just going to have, everything that exists right now is going to be in gray, and then you're going to make that pop out using color to show what kind of elements. So if that's like a seating area or a hedgerow, raised bed garden, something like that, you're going to use color to make that pop out for us. Okay, and this is going to be highly variable, how detailed you want to get, but just include at least, I think the elements that are outlined here on the template is a good guideline. Here's another alternative way to lay that out. You can make that as just a vertical row. That works quite well. And then here they've used the basic template. So again, with that, this is that professional level design, but it's used the same template. And you can see there's different aspects here, like there's a rocket bread oven, a masonry stove cook pot, and a solar oven. So this is for the outdoor kitchen. So just, look to these examples because there are some there's a lot of variation in this assignment, and so it's nice to see what other people have done and maybe find somebody whose site is comparable to yours. Now remember, if you go back here, you can go to see sample of students' reports. You open that up. I want to make sure this is, so this is a searchable database. And so these are all different sites that have been contributed by other instructors that we found are, so student examples that we found are really nice for other students to refer to. So I've still got all my students to enter into this. I haven't done that yet, but there's lots of examples. So you can find, find your own location or, a similar context. I believe I want to see, you can search by climate, plant hardiness zone, whether it's a hybrid, digital, or hand-drawn design. None of the some applications were used, some highlights. Okay, and then there's some notes there. So what I wanted to see was actually property size. So here's some, so scope, that's worth seeing. So suburban, rural, urban, there you go. So you can find some examples that hopefully overlap with your own. Okay, let's go back to the template. Okay. Any additional design elements? Again, look to the examples to see, is there some other aspect that you kind of want to raise up? This person highlighted the Google culture they were going to install, and an archway. So, okay. Lots of images here. This is an assignment that's really heavy on images, and as you can see here, element image. So these are those individual elements. These are going to be the ones related to your energy systems and conservation strategies. So energy systems could be like photovoltaic. It could be cooking systems, heating, cooling. If you're planning anything related to like vehicles, maybe. Like if you're changing up say like a driving or parking pattern in order to create like a permeable, like a rainwater catchment. So there's a bunch of different things that could be included here. Now it looks like they've replicated that slide from the previous one. Okay. So and then any building aspects that you want to include. So say shade, like a shade sail, or an ADU aspect that you're developing. Especially if you're building, this is a good place to start thinking about that and kind of laying that out more clearly. if you're creating, even if you're planting to induce some shade onto, say, a south facing side of a building, this could be a good place to put that. Now, you may have to prioritize, like if you've got way too many things to fit in here, you could do a second slide and kind of divide this out into energy systems and like a conservation or an energy systems technology and the energy systems for conservate and the conservation aspect if you wanted to divide that out. I've seen that done. So okay, but yeah, lots of imagery here. Don't forget to caption your images, tell me what they are, and then do your information box, of course. Okay, and then you're onto your SWOT analysis, which I think you've got lots of experience with at this point. So that's where we're at. Okay, I'm gonna check in quickly on my email and see if anyone was good. No, I haven't got anyone. Looks like they were gonna show up. Did not get any questions. So I think we're going to close that out. Okay. So if you're feeling like you are still going to push through and finish the course, awesome, we're here to cheer you on. Make sure you get these main design aspects. I'm going to be, because I know some of you are re-enrolled, I really want to see you finish this round, not because I don't want to see you again or because I don't like you, but I really want to see you have that experience of like finishing the course and just being able to move on to design aspect and having a design for your property or for your client's property. If you need to skip through, be super quick in your SWOT analysis. Cut corners on your building survey. If you want to just do like a really quick survey, insert an image, no big deal. Like get something down so there's it's not obviously just like completely unfinished. But really focus on the design aspects because we do want to see you finish. And then of course the next assignment, lesson 10, local network survey. This is a survey that's actually quite involved. I mean, because you are actually looking up, specific farms and nurseries and stuff around you. And this can kind of be a wormhole because you might find somebody that's really interesting you want to reach out to. And it can be really fun if you have time to do it. So try not to rush it if you can avoid that. And then your concept plan, this is going to be quite involved. So all your different design elements, different zones, like all of your design goals. So this is really where you go high level, you start to bring it all together. So give yourself enough time to do this by just, get the basics down for other assignments, get caught up so you've got enough time to go ahead and submit this on time. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I was hoping to see somebody, but I guess we didn't. So good luck. Feel free to reach out with questions and looking forward to seeing these assignments coming in. Okay.